Hello everyone, welcome to our Engen Best Teacher Awards, and today we're looking at grade 10 and our Best Teacher Award goes to Marilena Claro, and we are very, very proud that she is our best grade 10 English teacher. Welcome, lovely to have you here, Marilena.
Thank you for inviting me to the program.
So just take us through the highlights as we are watching that lesson. What do you want us to look out for? What worked? What was inspiring or exciting?
I started the lesson by discussing narrative writing. We looked at some very good, some effective techniques of narrative writing.
I want you to look at this worksheet. Okay, and I'm going to read the first paragraph. Right. Narrative writing is one of the most common forms of expression. We often have the need to tell stories. Narrative writing may be fictional or realistic or a combination of both. It always tells a story. So it can be real or it can be imagined. Okay, or it can be a combination of both. An autobiography, it is sometimes also known as a memoir, is also an example of a first-person narrative that invites the reader to share intimately a first-hand account of the writer's experiences. What technique can a writer use in narrative writing that shows that it's a first-hand account of the writer's experiences? I felt, yes. Or even maybe the personal pronoun I.
And then I moved on to Anxious Ashes. We spoke about Anxious Ashes. I read an extract from Anxious Ashes. I looked at some of the techniques that Frank McCourt used, for example, exaggeration and repetition.
Okay, now let's look at that. Exaggeration and repetition are two such techniques and have been used in the following extract from Frank McCourt's best-selling autobiography, Anxious Ashes. Frank's grandmother has taken in a new lodger called Bill Galvin, and the reluctant Frank has been given the job for which he is to be paid 6 pence a week of taking Bill a cooked dinner every day.
And,
fantastic.
Yes.
And did the students respond to Angela's Ashes?
Oh, definitely. It's
the Frank McCourt book.
Yes, yes. It's a very sad, very touching book. And when we were reading the book in class, sometimes the children used to ask me, but how does he remember all these things? Because he wrote this book when he was 65, when he became a teacher, because this book is about an Irish family. He was born in America and he moved to Ireland when he was 3 years old with his family. And his family, they were very poor. His father was an alcoholic. And this book deals with a lot of issues, poverty, the poverty that he endured. It deals with the Catholic Church. It deals with the conflict between the Irish and the English. So, and a lot of times when we were doing this book in class, the children used to ask me, but ma'am, could this be true? And sometimes I say, you know, I'm sure he spoke to other people, he spoke to his brothers. So that's how he was able to keep those memories alive. And then when my colleague told me about this book, I spoke to her, and we realized that maybe
even this is embellished.
Yes.
Okay.
So the children were able to relate to this. And then I moved on to Million Little Pieces, and I introduced it. And some of the girls, they love Oprah Winfrey. So as soon as I mentioned the name Oprah Winfrey, it was like as if a light switched on.
In this book, the author, when he was 23, he went into rehab. All right, he was a drug addict. He was an alcoholic, and he wrote about his experience in rehab. He embellished, a lot of his experiences. Now, I want you to tell me what you think the word embellished means. Roxanne? It is to exaggerate. He exaggerates. James Frey in this book, James Frey is the author of this book. He exaggerates some of his experiences, but he also embellishes. Right, so we can see that Frank McCourt wrote Anxious Ashes, and Anxious Ashes is a memoir. And Janet Frey, he also wrote A Million Little Pieces, and it's also a memoir. And you can see that both writers have used very similar techniques, exaggeration, repetition. And the reason why I've selected those two techniques, because I want you also to try and use it in your essays. Now let's look at the task that I would like you to do. Do you remember at least one significant occasion from your childhood when you felt alone, lost, or terrified? Or hopefully you too will remember it as a time of innocence, freedom, or happiness. Just as James Frey's memoir, your essay can be a combination of facts about your life and certain embellishments. So it must be partially true. It must be based on something that happened to you, but you can embellish it. Now, I want you to write just 2 or 3 sentences. Think of something that happened in your life. It can be a recent experience. It can be one of your childhood experiences. And just maybe 1 to 2 or 3 sentences. I want you to think about it and write about it. You can exaggerate. Okay, it must be based on personal experience. Okay, but you can embellish it. Okay, I'm going to give you about maybe 5 minutes. And I'm going to allow you to tell the person who's sitting next to you about what you wrote down, about your experience. Okay.
I was 6 years old with an afro like Diana Ross, and I was on the beautiful island of Cyprus. I was standing there just distracted by the magnificent view when I didn't realize that my family wasn't beside me anymore.
As an aspiring designer, my first ever design was made into a dress. Perfection, yes it was. With the stitching right where I wanted and the color chosen for its silhouette.
The most memorable experience I remember was when the shocking news of my father's sudden death came. I was in a state of total shock, not actually being sure of exactly how I should react to it. I was barely 11 years old and I never understood why he actually took it away from me.
It was a dark night like any other, and I was oblivious to what happened. I saw shadows from afar, and it was actually a criminal. And that night we got robbed.
When I was 7 years old, my sweet yellow budgie was found lying on the bottom of the cage. The picture still haunts me to this day. It was an icy, windy night when I climbed out of my warm bed to find her lying there. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Okay. It was a dark night, and I heard a rumble that echoed through my room. Oh my word, it was me expressing my hunger for the leftover cookies. I had ventured into my fridge to find that they were finished.
And then did you give them time to plan and then to write their own essays? Did they share? Did they do any peer assessment?
They didn't actually do any peer assessment. Okay, I marked the essays,
right.
But they did the planning. The planning they did at home, but they do all their portfolio work in class.
Yes.
So this was portfolio work. So I actually gave them, I think, nearly 3 lessons to do this.
And tell me about the kinds of response you had. What sort of essays did you get from them?
I had some average essays, but I had most of the essays were above average.
My sunny little Susie. I'm lying in bed listening to the taunting howls of the wind, wishing I could be teleported to the happy world of the My Little Pony blanket covering my tiny body. Maybe if I shut my eyes it will all go away. Instead, the strong winds are seducing every bit of courage out of me. All I need is my mother to hold me. Perhaps the sobs from the night before were well spent, as all I can do is stare blankly at Susie. The tiny shards of my broken heart can't register any meaning in my brain. I'm numb. My mother's soothing reassurances are all I can hear, all I want to hear. She keeps telling me that Susie is going to heaven and that I could get another yellow budgie. Looking up at the sky, I believe my mother, turn and walk away. Surely heaven is warm.
Sleeping comfortably, I am woken by the horrific screaming of my mother. I feel her pain when I realize my home is closing in on me. All the fluids in her womb that used to be my blanket vanishes, and I am alone in an empty sack, my tiny arms stretched to the sides of the sack, only to try and grab onto any piece of my only home I have ever known. The forces are too strong and manage to pull me away. My head is sucked into a greasy, dark tunnel. I cannot smell as my nose is too squashed. My legs are still in her womb, and I kick to try and ask my mom, what is happening? Why is she leaving me?
The sour taste of a condensed milk encased heart. Your rooms are this way, said Gran, with an excited look on her pleated face. She was a true lady. She held herself very well, even when bursting at the seams. Her warm eyes engulfed me as I followed her down the passage. I came to gaze upon 2 workers who were coldly sharpening the kitchen knives in a nearby room. The security I once felt in this house had vanished as quickly as I had embraced it. Although I was only 5 years old, I knew something was wrong, but yet I said nothing.